What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Breaking Bet here on this Thursday, June 5th, where we're talking some super regionals. Just as a heads up, ran into a little bit of an issue here. We're trying to get this on Twitter. So if you're trying to get access here, you have to go over to YouTube. So that way you can watch the whole show. Trying to work on fixing it. Not really sure what's happening. So let's get right into it. I got my guy, John Bollman, here. Help me break this down, man. It has been an interesting regionals weekend. Let's leave it at that, where we saw a ton of upsets and a lot of these teams that were just unable to capitalize at being at home. And the chaos, in my opinion, John, was even crazier than we usually get this time of year.
Yeah, I got absolutely smoked last weekend. I think it seemed like even the upsets that were winning, they weren't really predictable. There were some solid teams like Wright State, Murray State. I'm not terribly surprised that they played well, but certain teams like a Vanderbilt, like that, I'm very surprised they didn't play well, especially coming off the SEC tournament. And they would barely lose every game, even that last game. They hit that ground rule double, just barely went over the fence. It would have tied it. But there were a lot of teams that just, didn't seem to, I don't want to say like try, but didn't seem to figure it out until late in the game. Ole Miss, for example, is another one. They lost that last game 12-11 after forcing, a game 7. So I think there were just a lot of, and the SEC in general just really struggled. I think there were just a lot of teams that were no-shows.
The interesting thing here for me, I hate to say it, but a lot of us, including myself, expected these teams that, quite frankly, we knew there wasn't really any standout team this year like we've seen in years past. Like there's nobody in the field, and we talked about this so many times, that's head and shoulders above everybody else. There was a few teams that were definitely better than the field, but it wasn't a foregone conclusion that somebody is here while the next best team is here. And I think with that being said, a lot of us, like myself, thought that these teams that were pretty good SEC teams were just going to walk through their own region. Ole Miss was one of them. I had Ole Miss coming out of this region. Listen, maybe I didn't give Murray State enough credit coming in. I didn't really think that they were going to be a threat to win it. Georgia Tech, I didn't love. Western Kentucky, I thought was probably the best long shot just because of the pitching that they've had all year. I will say there was a couple other teams, even in the ACC, like Clemson. I knew Clemson was vulnerable, but just kind of expected them the way they usually play in June to turn it up in their own region, and it was a big disappointment here. So we're going to be looking at some of these teams that won last week in upset fashion, maybe to do it again.
Yeah, I'd say there were a lot of teams that, were flawed, that I thought were flawed, but a lot of teams that still went out earlier than I thought. Like Clemson's a good example. I didn't think that they were going to win their super regional, but I thought they'd at least win their regional. So that's kind of what burned me there.
Yeah, so going into the super regionals now, let's take a look at what we have. We have all the prices below. Just to keep it simple, I did FanDuel for all of them. You might get a little bit different number if you're going on Caesars or DraftKings or a different book. But based on what we've seen here, if we break it down regional by regional or super regional by super regional, the first one's going to be Louisville, Miami. I don't think anybody expected these two teams to, either one of them actually, to have a shot to go to Omaha. Nevertheless, we're going to have one of these two teams that really weren't that good all year be playing for a bid into next week's dance. Louisville is going to be hosting. It's -174 to Miami's +134. How do you see this series breaking down?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I did not think that these teams would both make it to their regional rounds. It's honestly insane that we're going to have one of these teams make it to Omaha as the top 8 team in the nation, but here we are. I'm not too high on either team. Both teams were just barely over 500 in the ACC. But I think I like Miami a little bit more just because I think this is more of a toss-up series. And if they're going to give us the odds at where they are, I would like Miami. Um, they have Patrick Forbes. He went game one over the regional weekend, but he's very hit or miss. He'll either have his stuff or he'll walk 6 guys in 3 innings. You know, which guy you're going to get. Miami's, they've got that star power in the middle of the lineup, Daniel Cuvée. They've got some other solid hitters. They've got good starters and they've got a couple relievers they can really rely on that throw gas. So I feel like they have that type of the makeup of a team that could definitely make it to Omaha. So, with Louisville being, pretty strong favorites, mainly because they're at home, I kind of like Miami there.
Yeah. So here's my thing with this. And the price is a little bit interesting because you're getting, I wouldn't say it's too big of a number for Louisville, but to think that we're laying 175 with the Cardinals is crazy. But if we take the price out of this, and it's hard because we're talking about betting from more of a betting perspective, but if it's just strictly off, who wins this? No number involved. Louisville has got the advantage, I think, because Patrick Forbes, yes, we don't know what you're going to get. This is a legit first-round talent. He looked unbelievable against Texas in the opening weekend down in Arlington, battled a lot of injuries, was inconsistent. But Dan McDonald, the coach for Louisville, said this is the healthiest his pitching has been all year, which couldn't have come at a better time. And Patrick Forbes, aside from the fact that he dominated a pretty good East Tennessee State offense last weekend, we know he's got the capability to shut down just about any opposing lineup. Then you look at some of the other guys that they have. Tucker Biven, their closer, through Saturday against Vanderbilt, he looked really good. And we've seen this from a few teams in the last few years where if you have a good enough closer and there's some uncertainty in your starting staff, teams will throw their closer as a starter. Saw Oklahoma do it with Trevin Michael. We saw Texas State do it with Tristan Stivers. We've seen a couple others that I can't come to top of mind right now. But Tucker Biven, he's got really good stuff. And I think even against Vanderbilt offense that was really shaky, showed me a lot. Ethan Eberle looked good against Wright State. I do think that Sunday role with the injury of Peter Michael and even before that, like his deterioration provides an opportunity on a Sunday spot. But the thing is, Louisville's offense is so much deeper than what Miami has. Louisville's stolen 150 bases. They look to take the extra 90. They have a deep lineup that of players that can hit and hit for power, and they're always applying pressure. Whereas Miami, they're centered around one guy on offense. They have the best player on the field in Danny Cuvée, the reincarnation of Yohandy Morales. So my thing is, unless Cuvée goes nuclear, it's going to be hard for them to win. Like, I think their pitching is solid. Like Griffin Hughes, Tate Darius had a bad start, but he's talented. AJ Siskar, and then you got Brian Walters, who's been really good in the closer role this year for the Hurricanes. So I think in that regard, it's even. But I just think the Miami offense is too big of a gap from Louisville's offense. So that's why I think taking the Cardinals here at minus 174 isn't terrible. I would ultimately go with Louisville to win, and they're at home. I just think there's a couple of big matchup advantages that favor the Birds here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you. I think this could go either way. I'm really not very high on either team. I think they're going to go 0-2, whoever makes the College World Series. So I do think it could go either way.
Yeah, 2 and barbecue. All right, next one we got here is UCLA hosting UTSA. I'll let you start this one off. You got UCLA laying 186, UTSA getting 144 out in Los Angeles.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. 2 teams that I've been underrating. I feel like for a while now, UCLA was not high on going into their regional, and they absolutely dominated. Their hitting was unbelievable. Nobody could catch up with them hitting-wise. Their pitching wasn't great, but their pitching hasn't been great all season, and they're staying at home. I believe every single game in that regional went over. And now they're playing in LA again. And UTSA, a very good hitting team is going to face them. This is another one I really think it could go either way. UCLA scares me a bit after how well they played last weekend. I do think UTSA is a solid team. But they're another team I've been underrating for a very long time. I feel like I would go UTSA at plus money just because, I think these are two pretty evenly matched teams. This is a tougher one because, like we were just talking about, I feel like if there were no odds, I'd probably go UCLA. But at this number, I think I'd go UTSA.
We are live on Twitter, by the way. Was just able to get that to work. Not sure what was happening there before. But, UCLA for me is a team that I really haven't believed in all year. They moved to the Big Ten. And we've seen some of these teams that really weren't that good in the Pac-12 last year have big years in the Big Ten. And I don't think that's a coincidence. Like, I think UCLA is a solid team, but I don't think they're 23 or 22 conference wins good. I'll give them credit because they played a really good regional last week. I had the Los Angeles region as one of the top upset regions where UCLA was going to be on upset alert for last week, and they looked really good. So kudos to them. Here's my problem with UCLA. They don't have a dominant Friday night guy. They don't have anybody that you can hand the ball to and be like, yeah, this is an auto bet every week. Their rotation is solid. They have a few solid pitchers. Like it's a few guys that are like mid to high fours, low fives ERA. That when they look good, they can go out there and give you a quality start. They have a few guys in the bullpen I really like, led by freshman Wyla Moss, who I'm a huge fan of. Wyla Moss. Like, this is a guy whose name you need to circle. He's going to be a potential first rounder in a couple of years. Like, this is a guy that's probably going to slot back into a Friday or Saturday role next year for UCLA. The offense has been primarily driven by three players for most of the year. AJ Salgado, Malave Lavu, and Rock Chalowski. Rock Chalowski, by the way, if you haven't seen, the Golden Spikes finalists were announced today or yesterday. Rock Chalowski got robbed because he wasn't named a finalist. He got robbed. This is a kid who could legitimately be the number one pick next year. Chalowski is the catalyst, though. If he doesn't have a big series, it's hard for them to put up enough runs in order to win. That's just my theory of what we're seeing with UCLA baseball. And listen, maybe I'm wrong. Like, maybe the collection of guys that have overall been solid is enough. But I just think UTSA is so scrappy. They're relentless. Pat Hallmark's a great coach, goes down into Austin and handles the Longhorns. Like, he took care of business on the road in a tough environment. This offense is really good for UTSA, and they have a lot of different sources of production. It's like 6 or 7 guys that are hitting 300 or better. They have a few guys that are double-digit home runs. Like, they're not a huge home run team, but they have enough guys in order to supplement the power. And pitching-wise, like, on paper, it doesn't really reflect, but they have a pretty good rotation. Zach Royce is good. Connor Miles is good. They have a really good closer in Robert Orlowski. I think the pitching is something that I'm a tad concerned about because it's been inconsistent. But I feel like with UTSA getting the plus money, it's definitely worth a look. I think ultimately, though, what I'm going to end up doing on some of these underdogs this weekend is picking my spot as opposed to committing to the series game or the series price, because you're banking on, say, UTSA to win 2 games, and you're only getting it for plus 144. Whereas if you were to bet them at least one of game 1 or 2 at a similar price of 144, they just have to win 1 for you to come away profitable, as opposed to you're guaranteeing yourself that you have to win 2 games, as opposed to just picking a matchup advantage. Like game 2, Connor Miles is probably their best spot, just because Barnett's been really good for UCLA. So that's probably how I would attack the matchup. But I'm going to give UTSA a shot here at plus money, John.
I like it. I think they're definitely a good upset team. So I wasn't too high on UCLA going into the regional. I mean, they showed me wrong, but I totally agree with you in terms of that pitching. Ian May, I guess, is their ace, but they don't have an ace. They don't have a guy that they can really go to get them a bunch of outs. And that's a problem, especially when you get deeper into the postseason.
Yeah, that's why, listen, this is the year of the upset. We've seen a lot of these favorites lose. Like, I think only 9 of the 16 1 seeds won last weekend. I mean, I don't have the figures in front of me from like previous seasons, but that seems a little low. So I think if there's a year where some of these teams that even a month ago we wouldn't have thought had a remote possibility to get into Omaha, like this is the year. Next one is probably the best series of the weekend. This is not a super regional matchup. This is an Omaha matchup. SEC powerhouse rivals, Arkansas, Tennessee, Razorbacks minus 146, the Vols plus 114. I'll start this one off. Arkansas beat Tennessee to end the regular season. My thing is this. Despite the fact that Tennessee was my preseason Omaha 8 team for me, I think Arkansas on paper has been better. Not even just on paper. Like, they have been the better team. You could say that they're the most complete team, and that wouldn't – I don't think that would be a wrong description of them. Tennessee has not played sharp baseball. There's been too many lulls in a lineup that, like, on paper, they're 120 home runs. They're over 300 average as a team. They have a few guys that have really had amazing seasons, but the lulls have been strange. Infield defense has been an issue, especially in the second half, where some of these bad errors have really spiraled an inning for them. Their pitching outside of Doyle and even Marcus Phillips, it's been questionable. Like a bullpen that's super talented where like every guy coming out of their pen is throwing 98. The game 3 starter is a bit of a concern as well because they don't really have a guy that you can lean on and say, yeah, he's going to go out there and give me 5 or 6 good innings. I think for Tennessee to win this series, and we haven't had a confirmed pitching announcement, Liam Doyle threw about 40 pitches on Monday in the closeout game against Wake Forest. And their first game is on Saturday. So we'll give you a little bit of a preview here. Say it's Marcus Phillips that ends up going game 1 against Zach Root. If you're Tennessee, you probably want to get this done in 2. Because if you can get this done in game 1 with Phillips, then you would have Liam Doyle in the closeout game in game 2. And that's a start you can't lose. Ultimately, my handicap leans Arkansas, but something's missing for the Razorbacks this year. And I've been talking about it all year. And like you're probably listening to me like, what are you talking about? Like you're contradicting yourself. It doesn't make sense. The Razorbacks have not been a team that's really had a lot of success in June the last 3 or 4 years. And I think now that they're playing maybe not the best version of Tennessee from what they've shown, but they're still playing a great team. It's concerning that they haven't had the success in the postseason. Like, yeah, they look good last weekend against Creighton and North Dakota State. But I don't know if I trust them in a magnitude where the lights are this bright because they haven't been in this spot in a long time. Something has been missing for me with Arkansas all year, and I can't put my finger on it. Tennessee, Tony V, the postseason pedigree they have, and you're getting plus money. I think I got to go with Tennessee here. I can't back away from the team that I picked coming into the season to go to Omaha.
I'm going to go on the opposite, but for the same reason. I was on Arkansas preseason. Yeah. I mean, same idea. I can't deviate from the team that, I also played to make the Omaha 8. I mean, it's unfortunate that this is a super regionals matchup because this could honestly be a College World Series finals matchup. I do like how they don't reseed. Like, I do like that in general. It's just unfortunate that things like this happen when there are so many upsets that you end up having a Tennessee-Arkansas matchup. I also would not be surprised with whoever wins this series to go on and win the College World Series finals because when you play teams that are this good this early in the postseason, you kind of know what to expect, the rest of the postseason. But I'm on Arkansas. I was on them to make the Omaha 8. I'm on them to win the College World Series. I feel like that team, that program is just too good to not, win a College World Series. And I don't know, a certain, in the next 5 years or so. So there's one of those teams for me. I'm not as high on Zach Root. I did see something, though, that Tennessee hasn't won a series in Fayetteville since 2001, which is absolutely insane.
1 or 21?
2001. Like in Fayetteville.
When you bring up
exactly
like that,
that's exactly what I was going to say next.
That's going to happen for him.
It's exactly what I was going to say next. Is now that that stat's been brought up, it's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, these teams played the last weekend series of the year as well. Arkansas won 2 out of 3. But I do also think it's a big factor that Doyle pitched, twice last weekend, whereas Arkansas, they were able to get all their guys in, but they dominated their region. So, they're not exhausted. So I am going to stick with Arkansas here. Like I said, I truly do think this could obviously go either way with how good these two teams are. And it could have been a College World Series finals matchup, but unfortunately, we only get a 3-game series, and I'm going to stick with Arkansas.
So, here's the interesting thing for me. The longer this series goes, I think it favors Arkansas. Like, if this goes 3, I don't know if Tennessee's got the guy in order to get this done, because Arkansas has a deep pitching staff. Like, that was always going to be one of their biggest strengths, is they have so many arms that they can go to. And they have a lot of talented arms. The weekend rotation was something that, it's a solid rotation. Like, Zach Root has had a good year, but I think we can agree he's not a legit Friday night SEC guy. I don't think that's unreasonable to say. And he wasn't really expected to be coming into the year. It was supposed to be Gabe Gackle transitioning from the closer role to the ace spot, which didn't pan out. And I think we realized he's better in the bullpen. I mean, the talent's there for them. It's just, I think as much as there's talent for Arkansas's pitching, I just think Tennessee is going to come to play in this one. And I think in the month of June, where they've had more success, they've been able to shine. They've been battle tested this year, Tennessee. They've had to fight through thick and thin. Like, they played a tough regional. They had to go against a pretty tough Wake Forest offense, a relentless Cincinnati offense. And yeah, it wasn't pretty, but they got the job done. And I understand that pretty much every number and every stat and trend is favoring Arkansas this year. I completely get it. It's just like you said, I can't deviate from not just my pick, but from what we've seen from these teams in this situation recently, in recent years, I should say. I would be curious at how the pitching lines up here. I mean, it's going to be probably Root game 1, Wood game 2 for Arkansas. But does Phillips go game 1 and Doyle go game 2? Because that would put Doyle on Sunday for game 2. So that's the interesting fly in the ointment there for me. But I'm going to go Tennessee just because I got to stay with what I have, and I think they find a way to get it done. All right, Auburn -160 hosting Coastal Carolina. Two teams that are very similar in their home and away splits this year. John, Auburn's been a crazy team this year. They've been really good, but we've seen them struggle on the road. But luckily for them, they're going to be at home this weekend, where they've done a lot of damage. They have an elite lineup. They have one of the best hitters in the country, Ike Irish, a guy who I firmly believe, by the way, wasn't getting enough love for pretty much the whole season in terms of mock drafts. Like, I think Ike Irish should have a legitimate case to be the first college bat off the board, up there with Avar Kep. But the pitching has been a problem for them. Samuel Dutton has been their ace and really holding it down for them all season. And the rest of the pitching has been completely unreliable. But lately, Dutton has not been sharp. I mean, he was good overall against Stetson, he gave up some late runs that kind of changed his stat line. The pitching did really well for Auburn all weekend. Like that was a tough regional. Do you buy that? Or do you think they regress to the mean against Coastal Carolina, who does have the pitching advantage with a really good 1-2-3 punch, something they haven't had in 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really interesting matchup because it's kind of like the mid SEC matchup versus your top Sun Belt team. I'm not too high on Auburn. I think they're a very good team. I'm not surprised that they made it to this point. That being said, I don't know if they're a College World Series team. You could say the same about Coastal, though, but they're built different this year. Usually it's just all bats for them. They really don't have any pitchers they can rely on. This year, Coastal is all about their pitching. They have some really good pitching. They breezed through their regional as well. A very tough Florida ECU regional. They played extremely well. I'm on Coastal to win this series. I do think it will go 3 games. I think this is going to be a great matchup. Sam Dutton has not been pitching great to end the season. Coastal has a lot of options that they can go to, and they're, with pitching, which they haven't had in the past. And they've been playing extremely well. They've got some insane number win streak right now. I think they'll keep playing well.
There's a lot of tough calls this weekend. This is where you really got to deliver in the super regional weekend. I'm going Coastal as well. Not just because of the plus money. I think the pitching is a big advantage. And Auburn, yes, they've faced the best pitching all year. I mean, they're in the SEC and their offense has been fantastic. So no arguments there. I just think it's odd because the trademark of Coastal baseball in recent years has been all offense, almost no pitching. Like they legitimately had a top 10 offense in almost every major category a couple of years ago, but their pitching was a disaster. Now it's almost flipped, but like they still have an above average offense. Like Caden Bodine is one of my favorite players in the country. That is a legit dude, Caden Bodine for Coastal Carolina. But the fact is, like you said, they have so many pitching options. Morrison's had an unreal year coming off Tommy John. Riley Eichhoff's had a big bounce back year. Cam Flukey's been great. They have a handful of guys they trust in the bullpen. And I understand Auburn at home with the lineup they have is dangerous. It's 100% true. But I don't know if I trust their pitching again. I just think when you start looking at what they're going to be trotting out on Saturday after Dutton, it's a combination of Cade Fisher or Christian Chatterton, who's been decent. Cam Tilley might get in the rotation. I mean, Carson Myers has been their best bullpen arm all year. I mean, he's been really good. But I just think Coastal Carolina's got the edge in pitching, and I think their offense can do enough against this Tiger staff. So give me Coastal as well at the plus money. And listen, if Auburn wins, it's not that I'm not even going to be surprised. I mean, I'd be happy for them. I like what Butch Thompson's done this year. It's been a rough couple of years for this Tiger group and fought through a lot of resilience. And they're a couple wins away from Omaha. But ultimately, I am going to go with the Chanticleers here. What's up, my guy? Aubie Laker. What's up, guys? I'm doing an Auburn, I'm guessing LSU series moneyline parlay. Best luck to everyone. Aubie, appreciate it, brother. Ike Irish. Yeah, dude. I mean, Ike Irish, he's that guy, man. I mean, he's a dog. Cooper McMurray, dog. Bub Terrell. There's a lot of bats in this Auburn offense, but I just think Coastal getting plus money with the pitching advantage in potentially all 3 games is tough to not take. UNC minus 330 at home against Arizona. We could keep this one short and sweet. UNC was a preseason Omaha 8 team for me. Coming into the tournament, I had them emerging out of the left side of the bracket. Therefore, I believe they win. There's no way to bet UNC this weekend. The best way to get involved on the Tar Heels, if you haven't done so already, is to get them at around 6.5 to 1 to win it all. Because if they win this weekend, that number is going to be cut in half. And, if they're able to win this weekend, I think they're going to have a good chance to beat either Florida State or Oregon State and either Louisville or Miami. Arizona's live, though. I'll say this, because Arizona's got a good Friday guy in Owen Krankowski who's done really well down the stretch. They have a really talented Sunday starter in freshman Smith Bailey, a guy who I believe is first round caliber in a couple of years. Raul Gutierrez, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, might be throwing Saturday for them. They've got a couple good bullpen arms that have really emerged, but the guy that I really like to watch is Tony Pluta, their closer. I mean, he's been a dog all year. I think it's a sub 170 RA. Strikeouts are off the chart. He's got over a dozen saves, so he's been their anchor. For Arizona to win, their offense is really predicated on 3 players. Brendan Summerhill, I would say more than likely first rounder this year. Mason White, a guy who I had as a first rounder coming into the season based off talent, and Aaron Walton, who's been on a heater. Those 3 guys, even one of them alone, can change the dynamic of how this series is going, John. So if you're UNC's pitching, you have to contain them, because say one of them has like a 3-homer game, which White and Walton did respectively last weekend, that's going to wreak havoc on it, on your chances. But that being said, I think UNC is going to get this done here. That's the path for Arizona, but I like the Tar Heels. No, I won't lay it. I think betting them in the futures market to win it all is the way to go.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think UNC is going to come out of that side of the bracket. They wouldn't have to face Arkansas, Tennessee, or LSU if those teams are all on the other side of the bracket. So I think UNC is the most complete team on that side. They can hit. They've got, I think, probably the best starting rotation left. I mean, honestly, maybe in the nation, but probably left in the tournament. They've got quality and they've got depth there. Their bullpen's a little iffy. I believe it's Walker McDuffie. Who's their freshman who has pitched really well. But it's tough to rely on a freshman this deep in the postseason. And they don't necessarily have that, those shutdown bullpen guys that they have the past couple of years, but they've got that quality and depth in the starting rotation. They can hit. I mean, I wouldn't be terribly surprised if Arizona wins one game. Kramkowski's pitched great. Jake Knapp's been pitching great too, but I think Arizona's probably going to have to do it in that game 1. Because once you get later in that series, that's where UNC's depth will show. But I really don't think UNC loses this series. I will say you can parlay LSU to win the Super Regional and UNC to win their Super Regional. Comes out to about -150. I think you can get it on ESPN at -145 too. So I played that. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Arizona wins one game. I do not think UNC loses this series at home. I think they're going to go to Omaha.
Yeah, I do as well. All right, let's keep going. We have LSU, West Virginia, another big number here. I'll keep this simple, even more simple. LSU's got the best 1-2 punch of Kate Anderson and Anthony Ianson, 2 guys that are probably first rounders this summer. They have a pitching staff that's 8 arms deep. And now that was my handicap coming into the year of like not just them going to Omaha, but them winning it all. Because I loved LSU from before the year started to hoist the trophy again. With the emergence of Kason Evans, who was just off the charts on Monday's elimination game, winner-take-all game against Little Rock. Like, yeah, it was Little Rock, but that's a tough team. Kason Evans went 6 innings, 1 earned, 12 strikeouts. He looked unreal. And if that's the version that LSU is going to get for the rest of the year, that's tough to beat. Because then, Evans, who has had struggles in the Sunday role at times this year, like if that is the version, they can pencil him in on Sundays and they look really good. So they have pitching depth and quality. Their offense is really good. The one issue I would say is it falls into these lulls at the most awful times. So that's the one thing to worry about. I think if you're West Virginia, though, they have a chance on Griffin Kern Day, which will probably be the game 1. Griffin Kern, and shout out to my guy Noah Bieniek. He's been saying it for a while. Shades of Derek Clark from last year of West Virginia's Friday guy. Kern's gone 7+ in each of his last 4 starts. He's looked amazing. So if they're going to win a game, it's probably with him. And the fact is you're getting like plus 250 or bigger on WVU. I think that's worth a play. If not, at least take the plus 2.5. But I got LSU winning this series, dude. I think they're the better team. They're at home. I haven't really trusted West Virginia all year. I mean, Clemson shit all over themselves, and I'm not really the biggest Kentucky fan. So while it was, it was a tough battle down in Clemson last weekend, it's a lot different than going into the box and beating LSU. So give me the Tigers here. And, if you're going to take a West Virginia money line spot, it is the Griffin Kern day. Otherwise, the only way to really get involved on LSU is plus 310 to win it all. Because if they win this weekend, that price is probably going to be closer to, I would say, 175 next week. If I'm not mistaken, I think LSU would play the winner. The winner of this series would play the winner of Tennessee, Arkansas.
Yeah.
Game 1 next weekend.
Yeah.
That's correct, right?
Yep.
I mean, I got news for you. I think Kate Anderson's an advantage over anybody. That includes Liam Doyle. I mean, Doyle did great against LSU the last time out. But I think LSU is more complete than Tennessee this year. So I think, this is a LSU Tiger kind of year, man. I really believe that.
Yeah, I'm with you there. LSU was the other team. I had two futures make it to this point to make the College World Series. That's Arkansas, and the other is LSU. I think this is LSU's series all the way. I think they went in 2 games. They have that 1-2 punch in their top 2 starters. It's that third game where you might be able to get to LSU. They haven't really had a Sunday guy all season long. Yeah, Evans absolutely dominated in that game. I would assume if there is a game 3, he would go. But I don't think it's going to make it to 3 games. I think LSU will dominate the series and win in 2.
Next up, we have Duke minus 410 hosting Murray State plus 290. Again, 2 teams that nobody was going to peg to make it this far at the preseason, midseason, a month ago, 2 weeks ago. No. John, I think Murray State's going to win here. I think they're going to win. I think one thing that concerns me is their starting pitching. Nick Shuddy, Isaac Silva, some of the bullpen arms, they're talented. They can go out there and have good performances. But it's going to have to be done via the offense. Death by 1,000 cuts type of offense. They have some boppers. I think they have 4 guys in double digits here this weekend. Murray State's relentless, though. And here's my thing. You're getting plus 300 in some spots. The Duke Blue Devils had a good series last weekend. If Harrison Bodendorf throws against Duke in game 1, I wonder how the series looks. I know Bodendorf went to the hospital / was sick, so that changed the whole complexion. But Duke's pitching is not as strong as it used to be. They could throw out 6 or 7 guys and really piece it together. And they did that this past weekend, and it worked for them. But I don't think there's a strong enough pitcher that I would rely on that much. I mean, Reed Easterly's been their Charlie Bielenson of this year. And just the way Murray State was able to batter around Ole Miss's pitching, it was really impressive. And on the flip side, Duke's offense has been scoring. They've been really hot in the second half of the year. Ben Miller, the 6th-year senior who's 25, who could have gotten a nursing degree at this point, has had an amazing year. But the pressure's on Duke. All the pressure's on them. It's house money for Murray State. They weren't expected to be here. They're just having fun. I think the best way to probably play this, though, is game by game. Because Murray State's going to be in the plus 300 neighborhood and most likely all 3 games. If not, they're going to be 250 plus in all 3. That's why I think for games 1 or 2, which they would have to win at least game 1 or 2 in order to have a chance to take the series, you're better off just playing them straight up on game 1, game 2. Because if they win one of them, you're coming away with a profit. So that instead of the same thing of like the UTSA theory. Instead of having to commit to them to win 2 to get your series home, you can get them at the same price in games 1 and most likely game 2 just by betting them single game. So I think that's the way to attack this matchup. So that way you don't have the liability of having to get 2 of 3.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think Murray State at this number, I would play them to win the series. I don't think Duke should be favored that heavily. Murray State, obviously, their pitching really worries me. They don't have much pitching at all. They can really hit. And Duke, they had a guy like Kyle Johnson come in and absolutely deal. If he's going to come in and deal, then they're probably going to make it to Omaha. Owen Prosch pitched pretty well all season long. It'll be interesting to see how this Duke starting rotation does against a very high-powered offense. But at this number, I like Murray State. I don't think Duke should be this heavily favored, even though they're at home, even though they're probably the better team on paper.
AirPods died. Yeah, I don't understand this big of a number. I got to say, I really don't. There's not like a significant advantage for Duke. I think their pitching is better. It's deeper. But, their best arm this year has been Owen Prosch. Owen Prosch's got a 4.8 ERA. I mean, he's been better lately. Yeah, like no doubt. But it's not enough for me to say, oh, you know what? Yeah, let's make the Duke Blue Devils minus 410. I don't see it. If you're looking to bet Murray State, that's how you do it. Take them 1 and 2 at a big number instead of having to worry about the liability of needing. All right, last but not least, Oregon State, FSU, maybe the biggest coin flip of the weekend here out in Corvallis. Take me through how you think this series unfolds.
Yeah, so I like Oregon State here. This is a series that it really is a coin flip. I think if this were at Florida State, I think they would win this series. I think because it's at Oregon State, they're going to win this series. Oregon State lost the first game of the regional, but then they went on an absolute tear. They looked really good those last few games. Oregon State doesn't necessarily have that ace that they can go to. They've got 3 guys that have like a 4-something ERA. But they're capable of pitching a good game. They've got a good bullpen. They have a few guys in their lineup that are red hot right now. And I think playing at home will be a big factor. I think, FSU's got a solid starting rotation. I think Jamie Arnold will, be fine. But if he doesn't pitch well, then, we know Florida State's had a really tough bullpen all season long. And I think they're going to need to rely on that with how good Oregon State's offense has been. So I like Oregon State here. I also wouldn't be surprised if they get to Jamie Arnold in that game.
Yeah, so I think here it sucks. These are 2 teams I was pretty heavily invested on last year. And, of course, I'm in this position. I have to watch one of them make it to Omaha. But, for me, I think FSU has the better – I think FSU has more advantages in this series. But I think the bullpen's enough of a liability that it swings heavily in favor of Oregon State. The Beavers – the question I had on them all year, because I liked Oregon State coming into the year. I was betting on them a lot in the first few weeks. But what I realized is this team is just so, and I've been talking about this all season, this team is so reliant on a few guys in the lineup and a few guys on the pitching staff. And if they don't carry the team, that's where they run into trouble. So let's break it down Beaver style. Ava Arquette might be the first college bat off the board. He's had an unreal year, and he had a really good weekend last weekend. Gavin Turley's been amazing. But the X factor is going to be Trent Carraway. Trent Carraway was a guy who is draft eligible as a sophomore this year, who reasonably had real first-round juice. And he had a down year. But last weekend, he went nuclear. So if he does that again, that's really where you have a big advantage if you're Oregon State. And they have a couple other guys that can do some stuff. Like I think it's got to be their big horses really carrying it this year, because I just don't, or this weekend, because I don't know if they have enough depth in order to consistently get after this FSU pitching staff. I think for them, they need to work the counts of all three starters because FSU has a really good rotation. They got to get Jamie Arnold out by the 5th inning. So that's why if you're Oregon State, you need your pitching to be able to at least match what FSU starting pitching does. So the question is, does Eric Segura go in game 1? Or is Dax Whitney going to take the hill? Dax Whitney, maybe the most talented freshman pitcher that there is right now in the sport. He's looked really good as of late. He looked really good on Monday or Sunday. I forget what day he threw in the regional. And I think Oregon State's got a better bullpen. So that's ultimately where the handicap comes from, an advantage of Oregon State. Plus, even Kleinschmidt, I think, is going to be an advantage over Wes Mendez. Wes Mendez has had some really good start this year, but he's had some stinkers. I think that's obviously the most vulnerable arm for FSU is Mendez. And Kleinschmidt, who's been really good, can be, the swing game for Oregon State. I think because of the bullpen advantage, I'm more inclined to go with the Beavers, especially playing at home in a tough Corvallis place for Florida State traveling across country. FSU is a good team, but your bullpen against this offense in this environment is something that I have trouble with. Oregon State didn't impress me. St. Mary's and all Arizona State is both. Florida State is more talented. They don't have the better bullpen. That's the issue. So I don't know if you heard before. I think advantage-wise, their starting rotation's better and their offense is better. It's deeper, but their bullpen is bad enough to where I think it creates enough of an advantage for Oregon State. So that's ultimately where I'm going, like you. And there are some spots you can get Oregon State at plus money. We could run through these real quick. I don't think we have confirmed pitching matchups for everybody. We have a pretty good idea. Arizona plus 240 at UNC. It should be Jake Knapp, Owen Kramkowski. You're not laying minus 330 here. Are you putting UNC in a parlay are you putting UNC in a parlay in game 1?
Yeah, I'm parlaying them probably with LSU and maybe some other team. We'll see. But I like the under. I think Kramkowski's going to pitch well. I think Knapp will pitch well. UNC's ballpark, I feel like that ballpark could play both big and small. It just depends on the time. But I really like both these starters. I think coming into this series, I think there'll be an under early.
I'd probably be interested to see maybe if we can get like an Arizona team total under. I want to see what that would look like. I could see this being something like 4.5 for ASU or from U of A, given the price, it might be smaller. It might be 3.5. But if Jake Knapp can go out there and throw 6 strong innings, that could be something I look at. But otherwise, I'm probably just going to worry about UNC long-term here. Miami versus Louisville. I like Louisville. It should be Patrick Forbes. Undisclosed if it's Siskar, Tate Darius, or Hughes. I would think Hughes probably goes. But Patrick Forbes in this offense, I think I like them better. 175 is I think it's starting to push that fair price boundary. So if you're seeing Louisville get into like the minus 200 neighborhood, I'm not touching that. But I like Louisville here.
Yeah, I'm going to go Miami. I just don't think either team's good enough to sweep the other team. So I guess my thought process here, and I don't love the total. I feel like this could go either way. So I'm just going to stick with the money line. Miami thought process here is play them game 1. If they lose, play them game 2 and hope to profit between the 2 games and then see what the line is looking like in game 3. And, maybe we'll play one team or the other. But I do think Miami wins at least 1, and that's why I'm going to stick with Miami.
Interesting. FSU, Oregon State. I don't think I've seen a confirmed starter for the Beavers, so that I can't really give myself like a good thought process because I think this series goes 3. Jamie Arnold's like an auto bet every time. It's hard for me not to take him, But like I said, with the bullpen, I think it's enough of a concern that I don't want to take full game. So luckily what we've been getting, or at least got last weekend, was different prop markets for the regionals. We got first X innings, first 7, first 5, first 3. I think we got first inning as well. So I would probably look at FSU first 5 with Jamie Arnold. I'd probably play that out to -160. So I don't have to rely on the bullpen. So that would probably be the way I attack this game here.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I do like Oregon State in game 1. I just think they were so red hot in that regionals. They won 4 straight elimination games. They've had their backs against the wall now. They're comfortable doing it. And like I said, I wouldn't be terribly surprised if Jamie Arnold gets knocked around a bit in this game 1. Oregon State's offense is just so hot, and they have so many guys going. And I would lean over, but I don't love that. I think Oregon State's bullpen is pretty shut down. And like you said, that Florida State bullpen is very suspect. But I like Oregon State there.
Yeah. The interesting thing is just going to see who Oregon State throws. I think Dax Whitney is probably the right move. And if he can match Jamie Arnold, the longer this game goes, where more bullpens needed, it shifts in favor of the Beavers. Coastal Carolina, Auburn should be Jacob Morrison and Samuel Dutton. -154, Coastal +120. Believe it's going 3 games. I think, I think you got to go Coastal here. I mean, we picked them to win the series. So I'm trying to figure out some in certain situations, like, is it more advantageous to lay off the series and just take Coastal game by game? Because this might be potentially this is probably going to be the biggest price you're going to get all weekend for Coastal because of the Dutton tax. I think if you like Coastal Carolina, I think with Jacob Morrison on the mound, who's pitched great, you're getting plus money with them. I think I would probably do this. I'd probably play Coastal Carolina here at +120.
Yeah, I'm with you there. The way that I look at it usually is I think of in a game 3, what would the odds look like? And if, say, we take Coastal at +130, if we think they'll be +110 in a game 3, then, I'll probably take that future and then try to just have that sitting if it goes to a game 3. But I like Coastal here. I'm not too high on Sam Dutton. I really don't trust that Auburn bullpen. I think Coastal is once again going to win at least 1 game in these first 2. So I'll play Coastal in game 1. If they lose, go back to it in game 2 and try to profit between the 2.
I wonder if they keep the series price up. So after game 1 happens, do the sports books keep up the series price and just give you live odds? So
they usually change it. If one team goes up, say Auburn goes up, then Coastal will be like +300 or something. And usually you can get pretty good odds when you do that. So I think a lot of it also has to do whether you think the team's going to win game 1 or not.
Yeah. Murray State, Duke, as always, shop around. You could get different prices. I'm taking Murray State game 1 and 2. So I'm going to take the mystery out of it right there. I think just the number doesn't make any sense. We're at a point here where any of these teams can win, and you have Duke, who really doesn't warrant this kind of a favorite price at home, even at home. I'm taking Murray State game 1 and 2.
Yeah. And I'll be Laker. I saw that too. They're putting extra seats in at Auburn Stadium. It'll be even more rocking. But yeah, I mean, which game were we on again? Duke, Murray State.
Murray State.
I was going back and forth between the over and Murray State here. I ended up going the over. I think I got it at 12. I think with Murray State's pitching staff and how hot Duke's bats are, I think we'll see some runs, especially Murray State's bats as well. But if I were to play this, I would also go Murray State. I'm just deciding if I want to double down there or not.
I like the Murray State. So I think this is going to be a big over weekend. Like Nick Shuddy, Isaac Silva could have good games against Duke's offense, but like Ben Miller's been on fire. Actually, you know what? I almost forgot. I haven't seen anything. So, I mean, if anybody has seen something that's pretty confirmed, feel free to shoot it out. AJ Grassi.
Yeah.
Because he was ejected. So I think he would be missing this game. I don't know if they've overturned it or not. I haven't seen anything regarding that. So that could play a factor because AJ Gracia can take over a game in his own right. So that's actually a pretty interesting look. But you can get Murray State money line and the over 12.5 if you're feeling frisky for a little same game parlay on DK at plus 600. So I think that's a fun look if you want to get something here. But yeah, it's Murray State for me, both games. If they're going to win the series, they obviously have to take at least game 1 or game 2. And we're probably going to be getting a big number the entire weekend. So have at it with Murray State in this situation. West Virginia, big underdog against LSU. Okay, so assuming it is Griffin Kern, who's been amazing the last 4 starts, if you're going to take West Virginia, this is the game to do it. Like if they're going to win a game, it is game 1. I personally like LSU to get this done, but I think West Virginia plus 2.5 is a good look here. You get them minus 115 plus 2.5. I think this is going to be a close one. I think Griffin Kern is going to have a good start here. And the only question, can Cade Anderson continue his dominance against an offense that's done really well against lefties? Granted, they really haven't faced any lefty that's of Cade Anderson's quality, but I think at plus 2.5, it's a worthwhile look for WVU. But I know we both have the Tigers to win this series.
Yeah, I mean, I said earlier, I think LSU is going to win both games. I'm sticking with that. I don't mind that plus 2.5 play because I would lean under as well. But LSU is just a 1-2 punch. That's pretty dang good. They've got a great lineup as well. I think LSU wins both games, and I would parlay that with UNC on the money line.
It's a fair point. Gracia is an appeal process. Thank you very much. Wonder when that appeal process comes to a final decision. Tennessee, Arkansas. Okay, let's do it this way because I don't know what Tony V is going with. Is he going to go with Doyle on short rest or is he going to go with Phillips? Plus 135, I think I'm probably going to end up taking Tennessee either way. Even if it's Phillips, I'd still probably take them. I feel like based on the price, if it's Liam Doyle, you most likely wouldn't be getting the Vols at plus 135 with Doyle on the mound. I think this would be a little bit tighter. So this is probably baked into the fact that Phillips is most likely to go. I think Tennessee can hit Zach Root. They hit him around the last time out. And I know Arkansas has got bullpen options. They're not short on arms. But I think Tennessee they flipped the switch last weekend. I think they're going to come out ready to play, man. I think Andrew Fisher and the boys are fired up, and they know what happened last time. They know Arkansas is favored to win, and Tony V knows how to get his team up and ready, man. They did it last year. I think they got the juice. For me, because I also like Tennessee to win the series, I'm taking them game 1, and if Doyle throws game 2, I want to see what that price is, but I'd probably take them there as well. I'd be curious to see what the book would price a Liam Doyle start at. I don't remember what it was the last time that he faced them. And I think he's due for a bounce back. Arkansas beat the shit out of him last time. I think, in a second start in a few weeks, he's bound to bounce back. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, same idea, but opposite once again. I had Arkansas preseason. You had Tennessee, preseason. I'm going to stick with Arkansas. You can stick with Tennessee. I think it just makes sense. I will say I think it's a little heavy for Arkansas in the game, but I'm still going to go with Arkansas on the money line in game 1. I also don't mind an over. Like we said, those 3 games were very high scoring in Arkansas a couple weeks ago. these two teams know the opposing starters. I don't think we'll get as quick of a hook in game one because, they're two aces. These coaches rely on them. So I like Arkansas here. I would lean over as well.
Yeah, I think 10.5 is a little light. I think this should probably be closer to 12, maybe 12.5. If the pitching matchup's a little bit different, like we expect, the game one was 17, game 2 was 14, game 3 was 12. So I would lean over here. I think Tennessee's offense can get after Root, and if it's Phillips, I don't see Phillips throwing 6 shutty. I think he could give up maybe 3 or 4 runs here in his own regard. So I'd probably lean over there as well. Last but not least, UTSA versus UCLA. Sorry, I messed up the number here. It's plus 130. Sorry. It is plus 135 for UTSA. We're seeing a lot of plus 135, minus 175 so far here. Do you like UTSA in game one?
Yeah, I mean, this one was one I was also deciding on UTSA or the over. I ended up going with the over. I think there should be runs in the LA regional. I think every single game hit the over, and then we've got 2 over teams here. But I would also lean UTSA. I think at that number, I like it. Once again, if it were UCLA like minus 120, I'd probably take UCLA. But at this number, I like UTSA, and I think this first game is going to be a big determinant of how this series goes. I think if UTSA can win game 1, they'll probably win the series. I think if they lose, then they might get swept.
Yeah, I like UTSA here too. Connor Miles is probably the big advantage because I think he's going to be an advantage over anybody that UCLA would throw. So I could see a scenario where it goes UCLA 1, UTSA 2. I like an overlook here. But I don't think UCLA throwing Michael Barnett in game 1, which I believe is the route that they've been going, is enough of an advantage. I don't think it's that big of an advantage to be laying 175. And truthfully, by the time, this is the Saturday night game. This is the last game of the slate for the game 1s. That number is going to move. UCLA is probably going to be well past minus 200 by that point. So what I might end up doing is wait to see what the number settles at, but I think I got to go to UTSA here. I really like their closer, Robert Orlowski. I like their offense. I think their offense has more sources of consistent production than UCLA does, so I think the Roadrunners here. Sunday puncher, UTSA sweeps over every game. I think the over is the look too. So for those of you disgusting degenerates that want to do a little same game parleezy, you could take UTSA and the over 11.5. They brought it down a half run at plus 300 parlayed. Not bad. Worth a look. John, before we get out of here, do you have any other thoughts that you want to talk about for this weekend?
No, I don't think so. I think that main thing is that part of the bracket where it's Tennessee, Arkansas are facing each other, and then whoever wins would likely face LSU in that first game in the College World Series. I think whoever gets out of that triangle is going to end up winning the College World Series. I do like UNC on the other side, but I really think whoever gets out of those 3 games is going to end up winning it all.
I don't think that's a dumb look at all. But I would say for us here this weekend, keep an eye on the pitching matchups. I mean, even more so now because, like we've been saying, you might like a certain team for a series, but it would be more advantageous to take advantage of a game by game, especially if for instance, game 1 numbers are about the same as what the series price is. So you can get that same number without having to rely on them winning 2 games instead of 1. So that's how I'd probably look at some of these underdogs this weekend. It's a little bit more advantageous. It's a little bit smarter with the money. And hopefully we get some live series prices after the first games, and maybe we can see some nice live underdogs to go grab. Well, we appreciate everybody for tuning in. I am sorry that there was a little bit of a Twitter hiccup early, but we were able to get 267 of you in here, which is nice for a Thursday night. Best of luck this weekend, everybody. Really appreciate you tuning in, and we will be back next week.